Hey, what's up everybody? This is Osterberg501 and today I want to go over the recent reveal of Outriders World Slayer, which actually has me incredibly excited to play Outriders again, and that is not something I thought I would be saying at pretty much any point after I stopped playing Outriders. And Outriders World Slayer is a new paid-for addition to the game of Outriders, and from my point of view, this looks much bigger than what you would expect from just a DLC from other games. This looks much more like a full expansion. There's going to be a new main quest line, tons of new areas, new bosses, tons of actual new enemy types, not like just putting a different type of the same enemy model you've had before, but completely new models, new enemies, new abilities, full new zones, new weapons, full new tier sets, new endgame progression systems, and new endgame content. They actually showed off a ton of new stuff that's coming with this update, and it actually looks legitimately really good. And one of the craziest things about World Slayer is that it is releasing on June 30th, so only a little over 2 months away. And I'm pretty surprised that we're getting it so soon after it being announced, so there's not a massive wait until we're going to be able to play this. So I just wanted to do an overview of a lot of the new stuff coming to the game, because there is a really good write-up on the Outriders Reddit by the community manager. So I have that linked in the description if you want to check in some more of the specific details. I definitely want to do some videos going more in depth in some of this stuff, because there is actually a lot of stuff here. So first off, there are a new thing called Pax Class Trees, and these are completely separate from your other 3 class trees. There's a new Pax tree for every one of the classes, and these Pax trees consist of 2 branching trees. So like how we have 3 trees normally, but this one has 2, and you use separate points for this skill tree than you do your main skill tree. So you earn these Pax points to put into these, and it has a lot of the similar ideas from the normal class trees. You can respec them whatever you want, and the main reason for these is just to give you more customization, to specialize more, and to better enable more hybrid builds. And the Pax tree will unlock at level 30 once you start the World Slayer campaign. And like I mentioned, World Slayer will bring a ton of new base additions to the game, so new environments, new enemies, a new campaign to play through, which is focused on facing off against Eriskull, and she is considered the first altered. And like I mentioned, they showed a ton of new stuff that makes it look much more expansion sized. Tons of new enemy models, new enemy variants, new bosses, all that type of stuff. And I'm very glad they're giving us a bunch of actually new enemies, new models, so have new abilities, stuff like that. Because there's definitely some games out there that pretty much just give you the same model enemy, maybe give it a new ability and a new color or something, and then release that. And the enemy variety stays pretty low. So it's really nice that they're adding a ton more of that. And of course, we'll be getting a ton of new gear, both armor and weapons. Each class will be getting dedicated 5-piece legendary armor sets, so plural, so each class will be at least getting 2. And World Slayer will also introduce a few new 3-piece legendary sets, which will be universally equipable by all classes, and they will have their own set bonus as well. And then they also mentioned that some of the previous legendary armor sets that are currently in the game will be reworked with World Slayer. So depending on how heavily they rework those might just end up playing out like getting additional new sets. And like you would expect, each new legendary gear piece will come with its own new unique mods. So that will give us a ton of new mods to try out, try to make builds around, and stuff like that. And next up, we have a new long-term progression system called Ascension. And if you've ever played ARPGs or Diablo-like games, such as Diablo or Path of Exile, you will be similar to systems like this. It's pretty similar to Diablo's 3 Paragon system, just a capped version. So once you hit max level, you can keep earning XP and earning these levels to put these points in to further increase the power of your character. And they're currently balancing the system, so it'll take hundreds of hours to fully complete it. And this will be done by collecting XP from killing enemies. And you can actually start this once you start World Slayer at level 30, and you'll be able to invest these Ascension points into one of 4 categories: Brutality, Endurance, Prowess, and Anomaly. Each of those 4 categories have 5 different options to choose from, so reducing cooldowns, increasing your life resistances, or just straight more damage increases. And each option can have 10 points invested into it. So if there's one that's cooldown reduction, you can put 10 points. There's one for life increase, you can put 10 points into it. And there will be a total of 200 Ascension points able to be earned and applied in this system. And you can freely respec this at any point. So if you're wanting to try up a different build, you can respec it until the point that you have a fully maxed out. Then at that point, you don't have to respec it anymore. So next up, we have the Apocalypse system and a 3rd mod slot. So when World Slayer is released, challenge tiers are going to be fully replaced by Apocalypse tiers. So these are going to be very similar to what challenge tiers were in the base game, where the more you increase them, the better loot you get rewards for unlocking the new level, and it gets harder and harder and harder. And Apocalypse tiers will not only determine the difficulty and reward scaling for expeditions, but also all of World Slayer content. So that includes the campaign of World Slayer and the new endgame system that we're going to go over some point in this video. Apocalypse will go up to tier 40 and be a natural extension of the world tier system that will still remain for the original Outriders campaign. So how these Apocalypse levels are going to work is if you have the base game without World Slayer, you will be able to get to Apocalypse tier 15 through the expeditions. And with World Slayer installed, you can play expeditions to continue unlocking higher tiers above 15. And at Apocalypse tier 15, your max gear level will be level 50 as it currently is. And then at Apocalypse tier 40, which is the max, your max gear equip will be a level 75, which will be the new gear level cap. So a pretty big increase in terms of power, and the level of items we'll be able to equip. And then the new 3rd mod slot is that when you're playing above a certain Apocalypse tier level, there will be a chance for Apocalypse gear to drop. Apocalypse gear pieces are special variants of epic and legendary gear pieces in the game. This Apocalypse gear will have 3 mod slots, and Apocalypse gear can only be obtained through drops. They cannot be crafted, and you can identify Apocalypse gear by a special icon when hovering over it. So this is another pretty big power jump, and you see systems like this in a lot of ARPGs, like I mentioned, where there will be a different version of gear that you can get at the really late end game, where it'll have different effects on it or be better rolled versions. So these Apocalypse pieces will be more of the end game of World Slayer, and when you get these, they'll have 3 mod slots instead of 2, which will be pretty massive and add a lot more crazy combinations into the game. Now, they did tease the new end game coming with World Slayer, because all the stuff we went over is just the new systems and gearing and not the actual end game content. So while Apocalypse tiers do cross over into expedition content, Outriders World Slayer will actually be introducing its own dedicated endgame, an endgame that World Slayer has been specifically designed around. So we're getting a new big endgame system. The campaign in World Slayer will take you to the ancient city of Tarja Grata, the cradle of the Pax civilization, where the trial of Tarja Grata awaits. And this is pretty much all the information we have, but they do tell us that this endgame system will not have any timed elements. So it's not going to be like timed expeditions where you have a timer you have to beat. This is just going to be content without a timer into it. And my 2 guesses with this, because they did show a little glimpse of some of the environment of it, but my 2 guesses for this is it's either going to be reminiscent of like Destiny 2 raids or raids you would get in MMOs. So kind of big content like that. You face like groups of enemies or gauntlets, then you go face a big boss, then maybe you do that a few more times or something like that. Something like a big raid style event. Or it's going to be a roguelike system. I think a roguelike system could be a pretty cool addition to the game. And what I mean by that is, say you start this up and you go complete a piece of it, then you say get a choice of like buffs, or you can go to a different room that gives more loot or a different room that gives more buffs. Kind of something like Tiny Tina's Wonderland's Chaos Chambers, except personally I would like a system that is more designed as a roguelike, where it keeps getting harder and harder and harder, but you're always getting new buffs to try to mix around and keep up with the increasing difficulty. That's just my 2 guesses, but I am pretty excited for an untimed endgame system that is clearly a big focal point of this expansion. And that's pretty much all the new information we got for Outriders World Slayer. I am actually really excited. Pretty much everything they're adding here is something that I'm a fan of. There's more long-term endgame progression, tons of new items to go farm, new gear sets, new legendaries, tons of new mods, new difficulties, getting these much rarer high-tier items that have 3 mod slots, and then whatever this endgame system is. I'm hoping this endgame system is very, very replayable. The expeditions were a bit replayable, but they did get pretty stale. That is why I'm hoping it's something like a roguelike system where they add in some randomization that will allow it to have a lot more replayability. But that's pretty much all I want to go over. So subscribe if you want to see more Outriders or other videos. Leave a like if you liked the video. Leave a comment down below what you guys think about this new announcement. And thanks for watching.